You're watching CHCO-TV's gavel-to-gavel coverage of the January 20th, 2025 regular council meeting for the town of St. Andrews. I'm Vicki Hogarth.
And I'm Florence Mitchell. In today's meeting, under Planning and Community Development, Councillors Harland and Heenan will move that Council obtain views of the Planning Advisory Committee for Amendment Z22-11 to the zoning bylaw and to set a date of Tuesday, February 18th at 6:30 p.m. for a public hearing of objections. Councillors Harland and Heenan will also move to accept the Planning Advisory Committee's 2024 annual report.
Under Finance and Administration, Deputy Mayor Akagi will move that Council authorizes an annual cost of living increase for employees. The Deputy Mayor will also move to authorize the borrowing of funds from the Bank of Nova Scotia from time to time to meet expenditures of the General Operating Fund and Utility Operating Fund for 2025 and 2026.
The Deputy Mayor will move to authorize the borrowing of funds to support the Market Wharf and Market Square project and the new ladder truck, and will move to increase the limit of the town's Bank of Nova Scotia credit card. Finally, the Deputy Mayor will move that Council accepts Policy P25-01 regarding water bill credits.
Under Public Works and Public Safety, Councillors Bennett and Neal will move that additional funds be provided from the Tourism Accommodation Levy Fund to support the renovations of the Town Hall washrooms. Councillors Bennett and Neal will also move that Council approves the mitigation project proposed by Ducks Unlimited for the Market Square and Market Wharf project, and that direction be provided to proceed with the final design and tendering processes.
Finally, Councillors Bennett and Neal will move that Council sets a date of Monday, February 3rd at 6:30 p.m. for a public hearing of objections to Bylaw 25-01 regulating vehicular traffic. Finally, under Economic Development, Business and Culture, Councillors Hurdle and Weir will move that Council sets a date of Monday, February 3rd at 6:45 p.m. for a public hearing of objections to Bylaw 25-02 regulating peddlers, buskers, transient traders, and food trucks.
Now let's join Council at the W.C. O'Neill Arena Complex Council Chambers in St. Andrews.
All right, everyone, welcome to the regular council meeting for the town of St. Andrews. Here we are Monday, hard to believe, January 20th already, 6:30 p.m. at the W.C. O'Neill Arena Complex Chambers at 24 Reed Avenue. This meeting will also be streamed through Zoom and Facebook. If anyone has any questions related to this evening's agenda and are watching online, either through Zoom or Facebook, please email pnopper@townofstandrews.ca, and at the end of the meeting, we'll have a question period. I'm taking a look at the recording of attendance. Is anyone online this evening, Mr. Nopper? Is Councillor Blanchard on?
Got to send him a link.
Okay, so Councillor Blanchard should be joining here very shortly, and Councillor Hurl's joining his chair right now. There. Now I notice there's just one empty one. So thank you, Council, for being here. And I do want to recognize that we're on the unceded traditional territory of the Beskotomogati people. Approval of the agenda. Could I have a mover this evening? I've got Councillor Heenan, seconded by Deputy Mayor Akagi. Any changes to this evening's agenda? Seeing none, all in favor of approving this agenda, please signify by saying aye. That's everybody. Agenda has been carried. Any conflict of interest this evening? We have Councillor Hurdle.
Just as I get myself organized here, just regarding
the entire agenda.
the whole, you know what?
Thanks for stopping in.
FA 250116, just a conflict of interest on that one.
Gotcha. I'll look for you to recuse yourself at that time. If I'm going too fast, slow me down. So anyone else? Okay, there is no presentation, so let's just get right into the approval of the minutes from the previous meeting. The first are the minutes of the 24/12/02 regular council meeting on Monday, December 2nd, 2024 at 6:30 p.m. Look for a mover for those minutes. Got Councillor Heenan, seconded by Councillor Harland. Any changes to those minutes? Mr. Spear.
Sorry, Your Worship, I was just looking at them again this afternoon. Just under the presentations, it says the budget for operations, capital, and utility should be the general fund and utility operating and capital budgets. It does make a bit of a difference. It's more of an accounting jargon thing that won't excite anybody.
But that's significant enough that it should be noted. Could I have a mover to make that amendment? I've got Councillor Heenan, seconded by Deputy Mayor Akagi. All in favor of that amendment? Those have been amended. So we've got a mover and a seconder on the minutes. Any other changes? Okay, all in favor of approving the minutes now, please signify by saying aye. Those are carried. And now we're in the minutes of the 24/12/19 special council meeting on Thursday, December 19th, 2024, 12 p.m. We sure know how to celebrate the holidays. Could I have a mover for those ones? Deputy Mayor Acci, seconded by Councillor Harlan. Any changes to those ones? Seeing none, all in favor of approving, please signify by saying aye. Perfect. Let's jump ahead. Nothing under communications, but we are into staff report. Pass it over to Mr. Spear for the highlights of that and the financial report.
Thank you, Worship. Sorry. Moving so fast, you got ahead of me here. Yep. Council, after a well-deserved break during the holidays, you're ready to hit the ground running in 2025 with several initiatives still ahead of you. I look forward to working together towards advancing our community. Under Council, one of the biggest projects before you will be the expanded municipal plan as a result of local governance reform. This will also lead to the zoning bylaw being updated. Council has already hosted multiple public meetings in the fall for the background study, as well as virtually, and the process moving forward will involve further public consultation. Related to the planning enhancements is an amendment to the current zoning bylaw, which is before you tonight addressing fencing regulations. Over the past couple of years, the primary item on the PAC agenda has been variances for fences for owners addressing the large deer population in town. The planners recommend we raise the heights of the allowed fences, but ensure a level of transparency through them to maintain the character of the town so that most of the property can still be seen. Another big project before us is the ongoing wharf refurbishment. We ran into a challenge last fall to identify a remediation project as required by the regulator, DFO. Through the assistance of Mark Sorensen, an interested citizen and a local engineer, we were able to contact Ducks Unlimited, who helped us find a project that should meet the specific conditions of the remediation while still making financial sense. Before you tonight is a chance to discuss this further and provide direction to staff through a couple of possible resolutions. To provide an update on the Recreation Master Plan, staff, in addition to Councillors Blanchard and Gumashell, have been working with a consultant to gather current data and create a plan for the public consultation stage. It will go to the public using multiple avenues over the next 6 to 8 weeks with an anticipated final report in March. Right? Okay. It also needs to be noted that Council plans to meet every Monday night over the next several months to continue moving their priorities forward. Under administration, after a lot of hard work and many hours checking and rechecking our data, the water bills were produced in late December and mailed out early in the new year. We noticed for several residential customers, although a small group overall, changes had gone up by triple or more. In many cases, we went back and did follow-up meter readings in January, and their consumption was still very high, indicating a leak within their homes. In other cases, the consumption was appropriate for larger households, but still financially high. Council and staff were concerned about this, and you have a policy for consideration tonight to assist some customers. It should be noted that with consumption-based billing, customers that use more, either because of the number of inhabitants or extraordinary use, like watering a garden daily or having a business, should expect to pay more. Based on studies I have found, the average person uses about 250 liters of water a day, which translates into roughly 25,000 gallons a year. Ongoing work continues towards the development of an apartment building behind the New Brunswick Community College in St. Andrews. We have completed much of the pre-development work and established a baseline budget to be able to apply for funding in the construction. As one of the main goals of this project is to provide affordable rent, we will require significant funding from other partners at the federal or provincial level. In addition, if we are able to secure funding and the project is viable, Council will need to go to public consultation to rezone the property. Over the last couple of years, we have heard several concerns from the residents of Shamcook and Bayside over the state of the roads being maintained by the province. In December, the Premier and Mayor met on several issues, including this. We realize that these residents pay 41.5 cents towards road upkeep, and at times the maintenance seems minimal. The Department of Transportation and Infrastructure has reached out to arrange a meeting with staff and the mayor to go over the concerns and provide input on their plans for 2025. We hope to be able to update the public and council at a future meeting. In mid-December, the whole utility went under a boil water advisory due to a planned upgrade at our water treatment plant. First, I would like to thank the public for your understanding that we needed to follow the process as determined by regulators and apologize for the inconvenience it caused. However, we feel the advanced communication provided by staff helped mitigate the effects on you and allowed local businesses to plan to have extra water in stock. I wish to thank the members of Public Works and our utility staff who hand-delivered notices to all of our customers. The next big project for accounting staff will be the year-end audit. We have worked with our auditors at T. Saunders Doyle for over a decade now and have booked a time, which is now early March, to conduct a field work with them. There is a lack of graduating accountants internationally that is putting a strain on the availability of auditors. So we do our part to ensure the statements and records are completed so they can do their work in an efficient manner. Services. For the first time in several years, we had a significant snow event during the Christmas holidays. I want to again acknowledge the extra effort of Public Works as they are in on Christmas Eve and for a portion of Christmas Day. While this is part of their job description, it does not make it any easier to make it out this time of year. Speaking of Christmas, Public Works will be picking up Christmas trees until January 31st. For residents not served by our Public Works Department, we understand that they can be left out on garbage day. In both cases, the trees are going to a landfill and not being mulched, as we have no equipment or use for the end product. If council wishes to re-examine this in the future, we can revisit it during the next budget time. With the budget approved, staff are now at work on capital project and approved equipment purchases over the winter. Many of the larger items take months of planning, and in some cases, the successful suppliers of equipment purchases may take several months to deliver it. The Town Hall public washroom renovations are one of the projects that has been approved by council and are currently underway. They are being internally designed and mostly constructed by staff, except for plumbing alterations. We have partnered up with a couple of local businesses who are allowing us to direct those in need to use their facilities, as we anticipate our washrooms will be closed until the end of April. In addition to the refurbishment, we are able to add additional stalls and urinals, which should allow us to remove the portable toilets, except during major events. The clerk and bylaw enforcement officer are working with the landowner in Bayside in the enforcement of an unsightly premise complaint. If the landowner refuses to comply to the action, it may come to you to enforce a required cleanup by an outside party, which then would be added to the property tax bill of the owner. It should be noted this is one benefit of the local governance reform, as prior to amalgamation, the provincial employees were slow to address these issues, as there were few employees that oversaw non-municipal areas for the entire province. I wish to thank all staff who assisted in the Christmas decorating and activities throughout the month of December. With the assistance of the recreation manager, the Volunteer Christmas Committee has expanded the celebration to over 3 weeks now. New events this year included doggy costume show, a figgy pudding eating contest, gingerbread house making, and the return of the Ross Memorial Museum open house. In conclusion, this year appears to be another busy year for council, but also for our citizens, as there will be significant amounts of opportunity for citizen engagement as we work through the municipal plan, zoning bylaw, recreational plan, and the vehicular bylaw. Despite it being midwinter, staff are currently planning spring and summertime events and activities. If you have any requests or suggestions, feel free to reach out. Respectfully submitted, Chris Spear, Chief Administrative Officer.
Thank you, Mr. Spear. And I know we just did, felt like just last week, but it was a little longer, the year-end transfers. Anything you want to highlight from the, I know it's too early for 2025, but anything to highlight 2024? Is everything kind of as we reviewed at year-end?
Yes, and Your Worship, I think even that we had concerns when we were doing the projections about the number of storms we had, and even though we had a humdinger right around Christmas time, it was still only one storm really, plus the one while I was away, I guess, in the second week of December. So we should be beyond budget, and we did actually have some extra funding come in, which I notified council of it early in the new year, which was a an unsuspecting surprise and a good surprise.
So, yeah, the positives are a lot better than the negatives, that's for sure. Council, any questions for anything in the staff reports? Councillor Hurdle.
Thank you, Worship. Just a quick question, Mr. Spear. Just regarding the tree pickup, I know I should have emailed this question over to you, but beforehand, would it be reasonable at all to pursue possibly doing the same thing with the trees that we do with the leaf bags?
Well, I guess the problem is if you don't mulch them, they aren't going to break down. They'll just be there for years and years, so it would overcome our landfill. So we have a specific area for the leaf bag program, and they do decompose in like a 3 to 5 year. They're pretty good. The guys can turn them over. But if you start piling up those 6 and 8 foot Christmas trees, it'll just make a mess, to be honest.
Okay, thank you.
Especially when some of them have ornaments on it every year. That's not a joke either. All right, any other questions for staff? All right, can I have a motion to accept the staff reports as presented? I've got Councillor Hurdle and seconded by Councillor Gumashell. All in favor, please signify by saying aye. That's everybody. Those staff reports have been accepted. We are jumping ahead to the...
Sorry, Your Worship, just so
Yep.
you know that Councillor Blanchard arrived at 6:35 PM online.
Okay. Hello, Councillor Blanchard. Good to see you. So we are jumping into the introduction, consideration, and passing of bylaws. The first one is planning and community development, just because we do have our partners from the Regional Service Commission on the line. Councillor Harlan, the first motion is yours.
Thank you, Mayor Henderson. This is reference number PCD 250102. The subject is Amendment Z22-11 to the zoning bylaw Z22-01. And the background information is, it has been identified by the planners at the Southwest New Brunswick Service Commission and town staff that there needs to be proposed text amendment changes to the zoning bylaw specifically related to fencing. Challenges with this section of the bylaw have been highlighted, especially through the Planning Advisory Committee process. Staff are looking to amend this section of the zoning bylaw to reduce the issues and stresses caused by the fence permitting process before the spring season. Please see the attached planning report from Alexander Gopin. Sorry, Alexander. Sorry, Xander. Senior Planning for details. A copy of the amendment Z22-11 has been provided for council. So the action, the motion is that the Council of the Town of St. Andrews obtain the views of the Planning Advisory Committee as per Section 110 of the Community Planning Act for Amendment Z22-11 to the zoning bylaw Z22-01, and I so move.
Thank you. Seconder. I've got Councillor Bennett. Discussion on this one. It's pretty obvious that it's process because they kind of want us to do this, but it's the process that we have to follow for their views. Any other discussion? Okay, all in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Okay, that will be sent over to the Planning Advisory Committee. The next motion?
And the next motion is that the Council of the Town of St. Andrews sets the date of Tuesday, February 18th, 2025 at 6:30 p.m. at the W.C. O'Neill Arena Complex Council Chambers for a public hearing of objections as per Section 111 of the Community Planning Act for Amendment Z22-11 to the zoning bylaw Z22-01.
Perfect.
And I so move.
And a seconder? Got Councillor Heenan. Discussion on that date. Obviously, Family Days bump that back to the Tuesday. Okay, all in favor, please signify by saying aye. Any opposed? That's none. That date has been set. And Councillor Harlan, you got the next one as well, I believe.
Thank you. So this is reference number PCD 250103, and the subject is Planning Advisory Committee 2024 Annual Report. The background is as follows. Jill Stewart, Chair of the Planning Advisory Committee, has provided a year-end report from 2024 on the files reviewed. Please see the attached document for details. Notable items include 18 applications reviewed, 6 times requested to provide views on zoning and municipal plan amendments and similar or compatible to issues, 7 variance requests, and the Lobster Holding Facility Assessment Planning and Appeals Board Tribunal Review. The motion is as follows, that the Council of the Town of St. Andrews accepts the Planning Advisory Committee 2024 Annual Report from Jill Stewart, Chair, as information. And I so move.
And again, a seconder. I've got Deputy Mayor Akergy. Discussion on this one? Just wanted to say, the annual report, it's a good opportunity to say thank you to the members of our Planning Advisory Committee. I will say that that is a very thankless position that you can raise your hand, but it's extremely crucial to the community, and it is a very important role that you can have, obviously, a lot of input into how the community shapes itself. So I think it's only appropriate that we say thank you to any of those members that might be watching today, because it is a big role, and you've got to do your homework, and there's contentious issues. So thank you to each and every one of them. So all in favor of that motion, please signify by saying aye. That report has been accepted. We are now jumping into Finance and Administration Committee with Deputy Mayor Akagi.
Thank you, Your Worship and Council. First one is FA 250117, and it's the CPI staff wage increase for 2025. So the background goes like this. As part of the compensation package for the town employees, Council has traditionally authorized a consumer price index increase that is applied to employees and pay ranges within our human resources policy. Up to November 2024, the CPI, as provided by Statistics Canada, was 2.54%. Within the 2025 budget, staff had allowed for a 2.5 increase. As a comparison, the federal pensions are being indexed by 2.6%. The following are approved CPI increases over the last 4 years. 2021, 1.7%. 2022, 3%. 2023, 5%. 2024, 3%. Note that in the 2024, Council did not take a CPI increase for their positions. If Council would like a review options to add CPI to Council's stipends, Council can debate this and can amend the motion if they so choose. And so the motion is this, that the Council of the Town of St. Andrews authorizes the annual cost of living increase for employees' pay and pay ranges be indexed by a factor of 2.5%. And I so move, Your Worship.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Could I have a seconder to get that one on the floor? I've got Councillor Heenan. Discussion. I just wanted to say that as far as the CPI for mayor, I do not want it in place for my own salary. It was a significant increase a couple of years ago due to municipal reform, and I still think that it's more than fair for what the position traditionally is. At the end of the day, there is compensation, but you raise your hand to volunteer for your community to agree as well. So I'm going to just, whatever you guys think for yourselves, I just want to make it adamantly clear, I do not want to adjust it for mayor. Over to you on that comment on that. Do you think council, I didn't set you up for success there, obviously, but over to you if you think that that we should do a CPI for other council positions or not.
I'll take the mayor's increase.
0%.
There you got it.
I think it was a substantial increase when municipal reform happened for this community. So unless someone's very vocal, I'll say we'll just stick to the original motion. Okay, I'm seeing enough head nods here, so that's a very easy conversation. Thank you, council. And you know, we talk about tough budgets. Good governance is that that we spend less on ourselves. How about that? And again, I'm not taking away from the amount of hours that we are going to be doing this year as this position. It's a serious commitment, so thank you to each and every one of you. Okay, any other comments, though, related to the 2.5%? Seeing none, all in favor of that, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Oh, did I not get a seconder? Yeah. Okay.
I thought we
Did
did.
you,
Deputy Mayor Akagi and Councillor Heenan.
yeah, did you have any? Good?
Heenan.
Okay, all in favor of that motion, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
That is everybody. That has been unanimously carried, and we're jumping to the next one.
The next one is FA 25.
Give a Councillor Hurdle just for
Oh,
the
sorry.
just for the minutes
sorry,
is
I'm
recusing
sorry.
himself from the room. That was my fault. I was quick to jump.
Okay, the next one is FA 250116, and the subject is the Bank of Nova Scotia operating agreement for 2025 to 2026. The background is this. Under the Local Governance Act, and its regulations, municipalities are allowed to set up short-term operating loans to cover their day-to-day expenses. The amounts are as follows: General Operating Fund up to 4% of the General Operating Fund budget, or $300,000. Utility Operating Fund up to 50% of the Utility Operating Fund budget, or $400,000. This is a renewal of the agreement authorized last summer, including the renewal of the global visa limit of $30,000. The bank has completed their annual review, including our budget, and have asked us to update it by resolution of council. So the motion is this: be it moved that the mayor or deputy mayor and the treasurer or the assistant treasurer are hereby authorized to borrow on behalf of the town of St. Andrews from the Bank of Nova Scotia from time to time by way of a promissory note on a sum or sums not exceeding at any one time $300,000 to meet current expenditures of the general operating fund, and $400,000 to meet the current expenditures of the utility operating fund and of the corporation for the year of 2025 to 2026. And be it moved that the mayor or deputy mayor and the treasurer or the assistant treasurer are hereby authorized to borrow on behalf of the town of St. Andrews from the Bank of Nova Scotia from time to time by way of a promissory note or a sum or sums not exceeding at any one time $2,960,000 towards the following projects: the Market Wharf and Square, $50,000, and the new ladder truck, $910,000. So, I so move this, Your Worship.
Thank you.
Your Worship, just for the record, the first part was $2,050,000.
Oh, sorry, did I say
No,
it
that's all right.
wrong?
It's okay, just for the record.
2 million.
For sure. Seconder for that, Councillor Harlan. Discussion. Just to be clear, for anyone watching, this isn't something that just hit the floor. There's been months and months of conversation, if not years and years of conversation. Certainly in the case of the ladder truck, it's been years waiting for it. So this isn't something that just hits the floor that anyone takes lightly at that amount of debt, just to be perfectly clear. It's been a lot of discussion on that. Anyone else? Councillor Weir.
Just a quick question, are those just promissory notes, no security other than the signature?
That's correct. So we signed an agreement with them that just authorizes us to provide paper transfer requests on behalf of the signatories of the bank account.
Most people, when they go for that much money, can't get that much money without a guarantee other than governments, right? So,
Your Worship, I'd just like to say to the public, so they're aware too, that the amount for the wharf only happens if we actually go ahead with the project, and so it just sits as an authorization, kind of like a pre-approved mortgage until something gets moving on there. So we could be months and months down the road before we actually assume those funds.
absolutely. The truck, though, we know we have spent that. There's no going back from that one. All right, any other questions or comments? All right, I will call the question then. All in favor? That is everybody that has been carried. I think this second one he'll also be declaring a conflict for again, right? So go ahead.
Okay, the second one is, be it moved that the council of the town of St. Andrews approves the Bank of Nova Scotia Visa credit card limit increased to $30,000. And I so move that, Your Worship.
Seconder for that one is Councillor Heenan. Discussion? All in favor of that motion, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Once again, that is everybody that has been carried. We'll wait for Councillor Hurdle to come back before we do your last one, Deputy Mayor.
Yes. Somebody's gone to get him. Welcome back, Councillor Hurdle. FA 250118, and it's the policy P-25-01, water bill credits for the town of St. Andrews. Background: it has been noted that some water bills under the new consumption-based system are extraordinarily high for some users. In many cases, it is because of a leaking sink, toilet, or faucet that has gone undetected. To provide a mechanism for relief, Council has asked staff to come up with a policy to address these concerns. It will also give staff flexibility when a homeowner has experienced a plumbing matter that has caused extreme usage. Under bylaw 19-07, a bylaw relating to water systems, water rates, wastewater systems, and wastewater rates, any application for financial relief on utility bills require approval from Council. Council has requested these now be handled at the staff level, but that a policy be provided laying out some of the basic terms and conditions. Please see the attached policy for more details. So the motion is this, that the Council of the Town of St. Andrews accepts policy P-25-01, water bill credits, Town of St. Andrews, and I so move this, Your Worship.
Seconder for that one. Councillor Neal. Any discussion? This was council's request, kind of the one-offs. You trust your staff to do it and come into the budget that it is versus us go one by one, case by case. It kind of just makes sense. And I bet you probably a lot of municipalities and big cities do it this way because I can't see a council talking about one-offs on individuals. So I think it's more consistent. Mr. Spear.
Thank you, Worship. Just wondering if council would entertain under eligibility that we add a section 4.5 that accounts must be in good standing, which would mean in order to be considered for credit, the people must have at least the previous water bill paid up to date, not the current one, but the prior one.
That would be common sense if you ask me. Councillor Heenan, you're moving for that amendment. Seconder. Councillor Neal again. Discussion on that? Don't think anyone's going to argue that one. All in favor, please signify by saying aye for the amendment. Aye. The amendment's been carried. We're back to the original motion now. Anything else? Okay. All in favor? Aye. And any opposed? That's none. It's been carried unanimously. So thank you very much, Deputy Mayor Akaji. We are going to jump ahead now to page 94 for Public Works and Safety Committee, and the first motion will fall to Councillor Neal.
Thank you, Mayor Henderson. This is reference number PWPS 250106. The subject is the town washroom upgrade request. Public Works has been diligently demolishing the old washrooms at Town Hall to allow for a full-scale renovation of both the men's and women's portions. This project was budgeted for in 2025. Based on the renovations, there is an opportunity to add one additional washroom stall in the women's washroom and 2 urinals in the men's washroom. To allow this, the vestibule entrance will be removed and 2 entrances will be available versus 1. This has increased the cost of doors, accessible access buttons, and additional plumbing and fixture changes. To complete the project, staff are requesting a further $25,000 from the Tourism Accommodation Levy to complete the recommended changes. This will increase the total budget to $130,000. With the proposed changes, staff anticipate that the portable washrooms out back there will not be needed for the summer season at Town Hall. So the motion reads that Council of Town of St. Andrews approves $25,000 in additional funding be provided from the Tourism Accommodation Levy Fund to support renovations of the Town Hall washrooms, and I so move.
And I'll be looking for a seconder. Deputy Mayor Akaji, discussion on this one. Councillor Heenan.
Yes, Your Worship, I'd just like to say that this is something that the town has really needed. And it's really important that we get this underway, and it's a wonderful thing that our town staff is doing for us. So I just want to say thank you, and I think that this is going to make the tourism season so much nicer. Thank you very much.
Yes, and it is additional stalls that staff's able to do, and I will note as someone who's doing renovations at a private business right now that it's probably because Public Works is doing it half the cost of what it would be if you actually had outside contractors doing it easily, I would say. So thank you to all the work they're doing, and thank you for our staff at Town Hall for working through it. I was there for some meetings, and there was a jackhammer, I believe, going, but let's just say the floor was shaking. Councillor Blanchard.
Thanks, Your Worship. Just a quick question for staff and for public's information. What are the number of stalls, the number of stalls we're increasing, we're set to increase by? And I ask that because if we're taking away, not that I like the outhouses of the porta potties, I guess, but if we are reducing the porta potties and adding a few more, are we coming out with a net gain or a net loss? I'm just curious to know.
It's flush, I believe, isn't it?
Okay, get the flush. Good one.
I meant to do that.
Yeah, I'm sure you did.
But isn't it 3 in, 3 out? Is that?
There might be a net loss of one, but by having 2 entrances, it should speed the process up, and people won't be, there's a traffic jam as people are coming in and out of both washrooms. So we'll keep an eye on it. For the high holidays like Canada Day, New Brunswick Day, we'll probably bring them in for the weekend. But for the rest of the busy tour season, we think that'll be more than sufficient.
But there is a long-term budget savings with that as a result, right? So, and let's be honest, our visitors coming and using a washroom was much more, I guess you could say, welcoming than using a porta potty in the downtown. So, and I'm sure the neighbors appreciate it as well. All right, all in favor, please signify by saying aye. And that is everybody that's been carried. And I think we're going over to Councillor Bennett.
Thank you, Mayor Henderson. Reference number PWPS 250202, subject bylaw number 25-01, a bylaw to regulate vehicle traffic in the town of St. Andrews.
Page 94, I thought.
Excuse me. Pardon me, let's try that again. PWPS 250107, subject, update on Market Wharf and Market Square project. At the December 2024 regular council meeting, staff recommended a mitigation project by Ducks Unlimited that would allow for the Market Square and Market Wharf build-out to continue based on the design selected by council with Department of Fisheries and Oceans approvals. Council requested additional feedback from Ducks Unlimited on the project. First, the number of years needed to monitor the project by the town. Secondly, to identify the responsibility of the town to maintain the mitigated project. And lastly, how the agreement with Ducks Unlimited would be implemented, i.e. if Market Square and Market Wharf project moves forward, when the mitigation project would need to be started, etc. Ducks Unlimited noted through correspondence from DFO, first, up to 3 years of monitoring is required for the project after completion is the maximum needed by the town. Second, that the town is obliged to do the initial mitigation project, but no additional maintenance to the mitigation project. And lastly, the mitigation project would not start if the Market Square and Market Wharf project does not proceed. Covenants can be written into the agreement. Note, to meet deadlines to get Market Square and Market Wharf projects moving for 2025, including final design, mitigation approval through DFO, agreements with Ducks Unlimited, and tendering, council needs to provide staff with direction on the mitigation project to move forward. The motions read that the council of the town of St. Andrews approves the mitigation project proposed by Ducks Unlimited for the Market Square and Market Wharf project, and that that direction be provided to proceed with the final design and tendering process, and I so move.
Seconder is Councillor Gumashell. Discussion on this one? Okay. Councillor Bennett.
Yes, Your Honor. I would like to just add, some people are probably, if they're sitting at home watching this and wondering what all this means. Based on our last discussion, I do believe that we're expecting that the mitigation process through Ducks Unlimited is going to come in around a 300,000. I think that's an important number that we discuss before we approve this. Thank you.
Yeah, so just on this one, the background, just to have it out there, is in order to do our wharf project the way that we basically presented it when we did all the consultation and what council selected, what the community selected, it was the number one choice, is at last hour, unfortunately, our wharf project was not approved by DFO, right? And what that actually ended up doing is that if we wanted to do that project, it would take away from fish habitat, so we have to replace that fish habitat. So the town is in a situation where either we go and get essentially credits for this project, which cost $300,000 to invest in a project that is not in this community, in order to do this project. Now, if we said, okay, we want to alter this project and just extend the wharf and use less fill, it would cost around $1 million extra for the community. If we cancel the project altogether, we're going to lose all our government funding. It's still going to cost the town a significant amount of money. So there really is no good option for this council to select. There is a quote that has been used, environmental blackmail, and it was actually printed in some publications. It does feel that way. In a perfect world, we'd be able to maybe even put a reserve fund for environmental projects in St. Andrews. But unfortunately, it does not work that way. So if we want our current project to go ahead, DFO has told us this is the only project they have for it to go ahead. So that is what is kind of before council right now. I don't think anyone here feels necessarily good about that, but that is the predicament that we're in right now. So council, over to you. Mr. Spear, if you want to add more to that too.
I guess just a little correction.
Thank you.
Your Worship, well, no. You've said everything right. Your numbers were all okay. It just, you said that it was the only project. It isn't that, but it is one of the lowest cost projects we've come across. And it's been hard to identify. Other partners have been looking, and it's hard to find projects within the local area that kind of meet the footprint that they're looking for in a short time. If we had 5 years to figure this out, we probably could, but at this point, we don't. If we're going to try to stay within the timeline that's been allowed by the federal government and the provincial government's funding. So this was identified in short term as the most financially feasible, if you will, and that's sort of why we've gone on this project that's not within the town limit.
Yeah, that's a good correction, but in the same sense, when asked if there's a project between our borders of St. Andrews and the wards, greater wards, greater area, there is no project, they said, that is available for us for credit. So we are either kind of go with this low-cost project or alter your design is where we're at. That would cost, again, significantly more money and probably a time delay as well. So anyone else like to add anything? Otherwise, Councillor Gumichel?
Thank you, Worship. I recall way back when we first started asking the question, would there be environmental permits that we would need to do the wharf? I believe Councillor Neal asked the same question, and we were given the advice that as long as there were no birds living under the wharf, no swallows, we wouldn't need any permits. So we kind of predictably didn't want to end up in this spot, and here we are in this spot at the last minute, not having the required permits. I think we delayed 6 weeks to get the answers to these questions that we had from DFO. We've got good answers. We can't delay another 6 weeks. It's the 11th and a half hour, and we need to pull the trigger on this, or these funds are not necessarily going to be, there's no guarantee that they'll be there. So it might not be ideal, but we're as councillors, we're here to look out for the greater good, and this is the best solution, I think, the best way forward. No, it's not in our community, but those ducks, they fly over this way, and all the rest of it. So not to make light of it, I do wish it was in town, but to have a project that fits, as the CAO said, the same footprint. It's on Campobello, not ideal, but it gives us a chance to move forward with a good financial choice for the citizens of our community. Thank you, Your Worship.
Thank you, Councillor Michelle. You are right. The alternatives are don't do the project or pay more to do it. That's really what it comes down to, and that's why it's tough. Councillor Heenan.
Yes, Your Worship. I totally agree with Councillor Gumichel, and I also would like to add that if we don't take advantage of the government funding at this present time, with the change in government pending, I would think, we may end up not having any funds at all. And to assure the public that if it comes in over what the amount is, we can still pull the project. Am I correct on this?
You are correct.
Yes.
This funding would be contingent on basically the town proceeding with Market Square Wharf.
That's right. And I just want the public to know that it isn't like an open book on the amount of money that we will take. I just want to make sure that the public is aware that we're very aware of the amount of money that it costs, and that the legs can be knocked out of this project very quickly if it doesn't fall into the scope of our funding. Correct? Thank you very much.
Councillor Harland or Councillor Neal?
Thank you, Mayor Henderson. I have a point of clarification. So if we proceed with this project, in the background it says that it's up to 3 years, that's the maximum time frame for the project, and that we are obliged to do the initial mitigation but no additional maintenance. So I guess I'm looking for reassurance that the parameters of the project can't change in any way. So if we do the initial mitigation for the project, and my understanding, in very layperson terms, is that we're dredging an area, is that correct, in Campobello? So if that area fills back in, for a whole host of potential reasons, our responsibility is not to redredge, is that correct?
So we don't have a formal agreement in front of us. That's what they've said informally. So until we put the pen to paper, that's what we're assuming. And if it changes, we'll let council know. But on this approval, we'll be going through that and making sure those major components we've said are part of the final agreement.
I won't be signing anything unless, like if it states otherwise, then it comes back here.
Okay,
Yeah.
and the maximum, to our knowledge, the maximum cost would be $300,000.
That is the estimate, I believe.
That is the
just to be clear.
estimate because it will be a tendered project.
But again, it would come back if it came over that as well. But in the same sense, we're doing this after the fact because,
Yeah.
so we could have in writing that we pay up to $300,000, I'm assuming, right?
We can check, but at the end of the day, we're responsible initially for the project. We can say that, but DFO's not going to pay anything over and above. I'm pretty sure about that.
So we're going to want to be very confident in our engineered estimates on that one because,
And we'll have those in advance too,
Yeah.
like, once the team at Dexam Limited, and just so people know, Dexam Limited would be the engineering consultants. They would have information like our CBCL usually does, saying, well, this is what we anticipate the final project to cost.
and just on that, some of the things that we're commenting, it's not commenting on, it's nothing to do with Ducks Unlimited. They're the partner in this.
Yeah.
It's the direction from DFO that has got us a little bit frustrated, obviously. Ducks Unlimited is definitely a good partner to help try to find a solution for us, right? So just for the clarity there of the comments for people that don't know. Councilor Neal, do you want?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Again, I've been pretty vocal on this for several reasons. Again, the idea of, mitigating or remediating marine habitat somewhere else in order to continue this project, it's not an approach I really agree with from my almost 30 years of being a biologist. But that being said, again, if the project was in our own community, I could probably swallow it a little bit better. If the project was, in my opinion, viable, I could probably swallow it a little bit better. But in my opinion, this project is doomed to fail right from the start. So in essence, we are being asked to put $300,000 into another community for a project which, again, in my opinion, is not going to restore any marine habitat, not without a significant contribution from someone else, in order to be allowed to infill our own marine habitat. And that, on so many different levels, just, to me, is unethical, and it just doesn't sit well with me. To quote yourself, Mr. Mayor, just a few minutes ago, we have no good option. And for me, no good option is not how I want to proceed with $2 million worth of taxpayers' money. So at this moment, I will be voting against supporting the Ducks Unlimited project. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Neal. Councillor Ware.
Yes, to me, this is not a last-minute option. In April of last year, myself and Councillor Neal
And Blanchard.
and Councillor Blanchard all spoke to the engineers who were standing right there, told them that this needed an EIA. There would probably be remediation. And we were basically ignored and everything went ahead. And it's very frustrating to have been involved in these things for many years and have the knowledge. And these two gentlemen are biologists. I just happen to have a few more initials after my name that nobody knows about. I'm a CPE, which is a Certified Port Executive, which means I know something about wharfs. It wasn't a surprise to us, and even now we're looking at it, and we're not sure where we stand. We got a remediation project with nothing in writing, nothing concrete. And, I think enough's been said about that we're still up in the air about that. I feel it's very loose and wishy-washy. But the other thing that never seems to come up in this discussion, this is just phase one of this project. There's two more phases that have to be done. This is the getting onto the wharf, then there's the approach out to the head of the wharf, and then there's the head of the wharf that has to be done. Are those two projects $8 million apiece? Are we committing future councils to have to spend up to $16 million, which of course they can't do, they're going to have to get government funding. But we are putting them on the hook to carry forward a project that we started without, I don't like using the word adequate, but without plans of how we're going to finish it, or some vague idea of how we're going to finish it. So I'm like Councillor Neal. I don't like to see the money go into another community. We have a hard time finding enough money to run this community. And I still don't have the good, solid gut feeling that everything is in place, even on this part of the project. That's all I'll say.
So I think what I'm hearing from this is that we take the agreement back to council if we get direction to, and then we've done that before, like development agreements. We would take that agreement you'd all read it and then decide at that time. Would that make everyone feel, I'm not saying more comfortable, because some of you would be opposed to that, but would everybody like to see that draft agreement comes to us? Mr. Spear, does that work for you? It's a very important file, so it makes sense. And again, I don't mind having a special council meeting. It's an important file. So bringing that back would allow everyone to see the fine print on what the municipality is signing up for, because I haven't argued with, I think we could all agree everyone's comments tonight are fairly accurate. It's how we're all feeling, right? So important project. Not doing it might not be an option, doesn't seem to be an option. And the truth is, the future council that, when the end of the wharf amortize it's going to cost a lot more than even the approach is going to. And how a municipality affords that, I can't answer that. The reality is, when the wharf burnt down many years ago, I've said that before, the federal government said, we'll rebuild it, but you take it over. In hindsight, the municipality said, no, we'll rebuild it, you keep running it, and you keep maintaining it, and you keep paying for it. That would have been a better solution for the community, because it would have been built at a lot lower value. And just like a lot of wharves, we're unfortunately one of the few municipalities in this region that has to pay for our own wharf. All the other ones are almost all federally funded. And between that and even this arena, these are big, big assets that the future municipality is going to have a hard time paying for. And that goes back to municipal reform and fiscal reform and asset management across this province. Municipalities all across New Brunswick cannot keep up with their aging infrastructure right now. In the town of St. Andrews, although our debt ratio today looks healthy, the reality is we will be like almost every other municipality in this province. We can't pay for these assets at the cost they are today. You're spot on with your comments, Councillor Ware. I don't know, if it's 15 years from now or 20 years from now, I don't know how this municipality will do the end of that wharf. But the other option that we have as a council right now is to say that we can't afford it and we don't fund this project, and we say people can walk on it or we board it up as long as we can until it's not usable. And the direction I got overall from this council is that we weren't going to let that happen. So, Councillor Enan.
Your Worship, I'd just like to say one thing. At some point, the municipality has to start somewhere. Like, we can project 25 years from now, but we, as a council and as a town, has to start somewhere. If we've decided that the wharf is going to be fixed, which we have, we've had public awareness, we've had everything, and we have decided that we're going to proceed with this. We have to start somewhere, be it that it's 15 years from now. I mean, probably 15 years ago, they were saying, well, the council in 15 years is going to have to replace the front end of this wharf. How are they going to pay for it? Well, here we are. So we're always going to have something. It's like a car. You never really keep a car. You've got to always budget to have a new one because it wears out. So if we have said as a council that we are going to go through with this project, then we have to start somewhere. And that's just all I'd like to say. Thank you, Your Worship.
Thank you. Councillor Gerbushel.
Thank you, Your Worship. I'm just, more a question for the CAO. I guess the staff is looking for direction and hoping that, tomorrow, if we give them approval, they could go forward and get this agreement and get it back to us quick because of the timeline and being at the very last minute. So I guess it's a question for staff. How long do you think that might take to get an agreement and that we could review?
Bluntly, I don't know, because the study may have to be done first, would be my assumption. So that'll take, be in the spring before they'll be able to go out and do their testing and stuff. So could see this being until April or May, but I'll have to contact Ducks Unlimited to see how much information they need in advance to put an agreement together. But I would assume at this point that they have to do most of their engineering work before they can even approach DFO with the information on the agreement, on the mitigation agreement.
So this isn't going to happen at any time soon, basically?
Depends on your definition of soon, but it's not going to happen in the next month.
Soon enough to secure our federal partners' climate change monies that.
No, they're all okay with this. We've kept them in the loop from the get-go. They've actually extended the project twice by 3 years because the original project was supposed to be completed, I think, at 2023. So they're understanding that way. Like I said, it's the first time maybe Councillor Weir has had some experience about how deep the rabbit hole you got to go with the DFO before you can get an agreement in place. But I'm assuming there has to be a certain amount of engineering studies done before you can even put an agreement up front there.
So just to be clear, we could go out for the wharf project, and while we're waiting for that to come back, we could be doing this, and then we would have both side by side and be able to proceed.
It's all running in parallel.
It runs parallel, so you know what I mean? You get the total of both, and then you say, does this prohibit one? Does this because if the wharf comes in $3 million over, this doesn't matter. It's done, right? If this comes back where it's not, and then the wharf, then you're going to have a little bit of a situation where you got to figure out, is it worth it or not, right? So I'd run them parallel so the timing isn't overlapping because there's no commitment to do either.
Absolutely. That's what DFO has recommended, that we do that once we start Ducks Unlimited with their proposal, then our design engineers can submit the updated projects to start that process with the DFO, because they haven't officially given us a mitigation report yet, but they're just waiting for the final drawings from our engineers to be able to do that. So it is expected to go in parallel with each other.
But on that, it's not commitment free because there'd be engineering costs that we are on the hook for with this Ducks Unlimited project. Because to prep it, Ducks Unlimited's not paying it, we're paying it, right?
But that would be included in the 300,000.
No, I know, but like if we decide not to do it, we've lost those engineer fees.
We have, but it's still, those will be paid at 70% by the funding partners. Not that that makes you feel real warm and fuzzy.
Oh,
but at
those
least-
engineering the Ducks
Yeah.
Unlimited?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. I thought we were on the hook.
I guess we're going to try our best. I'm going to assume
Oh,
so.
that-
They're pretty flexible on anything
but
related to.
that's a lot better than I thought it was going to be. I thought we were on the hook for the entire project.
No.
Okay, that's
But-
I call that a little bit of positive news.
Yeah, but it's additional 300 we didn't think we had before. so to
Okay,
speak.
no, that's again, I didn't think we would have even the engineering covered at 70%. That's a positive. So council, I think what we need to do is when we have a solid agreement is we need to bring it back to you so you can all weigh in. It's important to all of us. And then again, this will not necessarily go ahead unless we have the total picture between the wharf project and that at the same time. But I do, I do value every councillor's opinion on that because I haven't heard anything I disagree with, to be honest with you. Everybody's right, if that makes sense. Councillor Hurl and Harlan.
Yeah, I'll just try to keep my comments short because, like Councillor Weir, I have some significant concerns about this, and I think you're bringing up a really good point of throwing good money after bad. And I think that's kind of at the core of what you're talking about. And I think that if we punt this forward to future councils, there's also the fear of sunk cost as well, that, you're in for a penny, in for a pound at that point, which could be a significant spiraling issue as we've cast forward. And I know I don't necessarily want ducks to be the thing that bring this this whole project to an end, but I think some councillors are expressing that, if we do turn away from this, then we're kind of left to our own resources to figure out a way forward. And that way forward could be something that's dramatically different than what we see now, but I don't think necessarily we all want to go back to the drawing board at this point. But I do, I feel like we've been falling forward through this project and kind of hoping we're going to land on our feet at the end of it. So I have some significant concerns. But the one thing that I think that keeps me looking forward to this project is the fact that when we consulted the public on this and we had visioning exercises and we walked everybody through this, no one from the public could imagine a town that didn't have a wharf in it. And so I need to keep that at the core of how I'm thinking about this, and I think that we all should as well. No one said we're probably fine without it. So we need to figure out a way where that's included in our vision of what we do moving forward, and I think that right now, I think a lot of us are protesting this process, and I think that's important. But and we all have significant concerns. We need to be paying really close attention to this. I think we also depended on some key partnerships through this process that maybe weren't as solid as we thought they initially were. So, I'm willing to move forward with it at this point, but we just really have to be cautious. But for now, I'm still on board.
Councillor Harlan.
Thank you, and I concur completely with what Councillor Hurdle has just said. I just need clarification again, though, on a different matter, though. So when you say we look for approvals parallel with DFO and Ducks Unlimited, right? That means we put the tendering process, we start the tendering process. Is that correct?
So yeah, but if you will, DFO and Ducks Unlimited are really the same stream on one side.
Right.
The other side, you're going to have CBCL working towards the final design and tender.
Okay.
And so what has to happen is CBCL has to submit the final design to DFO, and DFO's got to approve it, knowing that Ducks Unlimited is working at the same time on this mitigation project, which they've already kind of set the parameters for, being DFO. So they're heavily involved. There's no surprises coming to those regulators. And so you have CBCL trying to get the wharf project ready for tender. You have Ducks Unlimited trying to come up with the mitigation plan. In the middle, you have DFO, who's going to approve the use of the shoreline, if you will, based on the results of the Duck Unlimited remediation exercise.
Okay, but when you say CBCL working to get the project ready for tender, I'm just going back to what Councillor Gumashal was talking about, which is the concern around the timeline. We are already working close to the end of January, and in order to do the tendering process, that is a can be a time-consuming process as well. So part of it would be to put this out to tender, to understand what the actual cost is going to be, right? Because we won't know what the projected costs will be of this project until we go through the tendering process, correct?
Yeah. And so CBCL presented several months ago now a 70% design, so they're close. I'm not saying next week close, but they're close. Okay. So once tomorrow morning I'll say, okay, start finishing it up, get in contact with DFO and get the application to go through that process and all that stuff. Our plan was, again, that the whole plan was always to wait till after boat season, so we're mid-October is kind of when construction's going to start. And so in the back of our heads, we're thinking mid-May maybe to late May to put out the tender. Only reason we have to do it that early, because lots of times tenders don't get put out till 30 or 40 days before. But I just want to make sure there's no supply line issues. So if we give them 3 or 4 months notice that someone was awarded a tender, then it gives them lots of time to get their materials in a row and get it ready.
Okay.
This isn't a technically hard project, for the record. It's stones and cement and steel. The only thing that there's some wood products that are a little specialized that the last time had to come out of BC, the big timbers like you see, that are still some of the repair stuff beyond the approach. But beyond that, everything else should be pretty much sourced locally.
I'll watch my comments, but last year's time frame of when we actually went out in the process and when we awarded it was a lot tighter than it is right now. They had a lot shorter window last year, so we've got more of a buffer than we did on the original timeline, but in the same sense, I think we all know the original timeline was very problematic for a number of reasons, but again, I'll watch my comments on that. I will say as well, I did want to give a shout out before you vote to a local engineer, Mark Sorensen. Mark Sorensen raised his hand and has been helping the town at no charge, as far as I'm aware, to work through a couple of different options. At first, he was looking at one with us. That didn't work out, but then he was, I think, the one that really pushed us in this direction. It wasn't our own engineer, CBCL, that did. They were kind of like, hey, this is what you got to do. You have to change the project. Mark Sorensen was the one that actually walked staff through the process to get us to at least have another option, because I didn't hear it from our own engineers, and I think that's worthwhile saying. So thank you to Mark Sorensen for raising his hand for his community to try to help. He several times he's reached out to help. So, anyone else? Councillor Ware.
I'll keep this short. I don't have a problem with going down 2 or 3 roads at once, going down on the road on the mitigation, we're going down the road on getting the tenders out, going down the road on keeping the grant money in place. All I am concerned about is that we clearly understand where we're going on each road. We call them parallel processes. My loose term for it. I do it every day, go down several roads at once. And, but the secret I've found is to know exactly where you're going on each one so that you don't get them confused.
I agree, and know what you're signing up for, right? That's the big things that could cost you a lot more. So, council, unless there's anyone else, I think we've discussed this one as it should have been. We knew this would be definitely a topic that we had to discuss, and thank you to staff as well, because I did mention Mark, but I know that Chris and Paul have been working on this file for a while to try to give us at least more than one option, so thank you to you both. Okay, all in favor of this motion, please signify by saying aye. And opposed? Councillor Neal. And Blanchard, you were 4, correct? Just because of the delay. There's like 15 of you on the screen right now.
Yeah, in favor, yes, thank you.
And a nay from Councillor Ware, too, so 2 nays. Thank you very much, Council. That has been carried. We are jumping over to Councillor Neal.
Thank you, Mayor Henderson. This is PWPS 250202. The subject is bylaw number 25-01, a bylaw to regulate vehicular traffic in the town of St. Andrews. Call for public hearing of objections. The background reads that the town of St. Andrews is proposing changes to the vehicular traffic bylaw. These changes are based on the community consultations, submitted complaints, surveys, and discussions with council that have occurred over the last 2 years. The major changes proposed to the bylaw include a 40-kilometer-an-hour speed limits from Mowat Drive and Bayview Drive, starting at the intersection and throughout the rest of town, including the subdivision. Extending the school zone to 30 km/h along Prince of Wales Street. The installation of a 4-way stop at Prince of Wales Street and Sophia Street. The installation of a turning line along Harriet Street to Reed Avenue intersection. The inclusion of a digital speed radar sign for Bar Road at Mowat Drive at 50 kilometers speed limit change, and for Bayview Drive and Cedar Lane at 50 km/h speed limit change. One additional parking spot reserved at the W.C. O'Neill Arena Complex for the new Department of Recreation vehicle. Trailer parking on streets must have pylons deployed for safety purposes. The addition of off-road vehicles not allowed on trails within the ward of St. Andrews. Rideshare programs shall obtain permission to operate within the town of St. Andrews limits. Administrative penalties updated based on towing at owner's expense. The addition of designated parking for municipal purposes. And 2 crosswalks, Thomas Avenue to the Compass Housing and Reed Avenue to the W.C. O'Neill Arena Complex. So the motion reads that the Council of the Town of St. Andrews sets the date of Monday, February the 3rd, 2025 at 6:30 p.m. for a public hearing of objections to bylaw number 25-01, a bylaw to regulate vehicular traffic in the Town of St. Andrews, and I so move.
That was a long one. Thank you, Councilor Neal. Seconder? I'll give it to Hurdle. You've had a few, right? Yeah, okay. Councilor Hurdle, discussion on this one? There's a few. I'm going to give this one to Heenan then, okay?
Your Worship, I just need a point of clarity, please. Addition of off-road vehicles not allowed on the trails within the ward of St. Andrews. I'm assuming off-road vehicles does mean like mini bikes and anything that's, we're going to still allow the scooters, are we not?
Through you, Your Worship, we have a non-vehicular bylaw that focuses on scooters,
Yes.
e-bikes, aspects like that. Under the bylaw itself, as currently, we have off-road vehicles as ATVs, dune buggy, side-by-sides, anything like that. You already don't allow on town streets. So this, due to ongoing issues within the trail network, they must be traversing the streets. So having it written in with the trail system as well, which is the non-vehicular, makes sense.
It's tightening it up and cleaning up.
That's
right?
all.
Yeah.
I just wanted to make the public aware of the fact that it's, you can still use your electric scooters.
Yeah.
Thank you very much, Mr. Knopper and Your Worship.
Thank you, Your Worship. Two-part question, Part A and Part B. Part A with regard.
You only have one, so pick.
No,
No.
I'm going to sneak them both in. Part A, with the 2 crosswalks from Thomas Avenue and to the rink, is there going to be signage for those? And is it possible that, like we did with the stop signs that we installed on Queen, would there be a yellow flashing light on them? Is that a possibility?
It's a possibility if council wants it. We get a lot of flack for having too many flashing lights in town, but a low-level amber light wouldn't be too hard to install.
Thank you.
Yeah, those 2 crosswalks I'm pretty excited about. This one in front of the arena is long, long overdue, and to find and I know there's some regulations that made it a lot more complicated than it needed to be, but Mr. Acton designed something that will obviously mitigate that. And the other thing too is out by Compass Housing, I heard there's like literally 12 or 14 kids, new kids to the community that move there. So, and I see them out waiting for the school bus and stuff like that. And a lot of seniors are going to Tim Hortons. That's a great location for it as well. With such a the 127's got some speed. Like I know people talk about different streets. I'm not saying there's not concerns in Queen and Princess Royal. Like I'm not saying there's not concerns, but the 127 is a lot faster moving than it is within the traditional town loop, we'll call it. So. I would say overall that a lot of these changes, I guess I have a question for staff is we'd probably have to have a pretty good awareness campaign on especially the 40 kilometers an hour. A lot of people have lived here their whole lives and they're not going to notice if you change a sign from 50 or 40, they're not going to notice. Just because it's been there their entire life, right? So I think we really need to do a good job of notifying the public of the change, because it is a change, and we don't want signs necessarily on every corner, right? Councilor Bennett?
Thank you, Mayor Henderson. If I could ask staff specifically about the point, trailer parking on streets must have pylons deployed for safety purposes. Are you talking just like commercial trailers? Is that your intent? Because like if someone comes into town, wants to put their boat at the, down on the launch ramp, and they're parked on the road, are you expecting that someone from out of town would know that they got to bring a pylon to put behind their trailer?
Through your worship, what we've actually experienced, because of mostly on the narrow roads and in the downtown, there's been a lot of commercial trailers that have been dealing with it. We haven't had the same level of boat trailer issues, but if anything, we would do like we're doing with bylaw is an educational campaign just to let people know, and we can even post a sign saying, for safety, please pile on your trailers if possible. A lot of the time it is based on narrow streets, but a lot of it has come from construction vehicles and commercial vehicles. So if council wants to look at more specifically at different trailers, we can do so, but we've seen it where we've had a boat trailer parked in front of Sheriff Andrews' house for multiple days and not being pyloned off, and has almost caused accidents. So the question comes down to is what's fair and what's safe.
It was there for like 4 days.
Yeah. So I'm open to council discussion, but in other municipalities that I've worked in and landscaping I've worked in, we pyloned our trailers regardless if they were boat trailers or if they were construction trailers, just for safety purposes. But I'll leave that to council to discuss.
Sounds like something, the hearing of objections, we should get some feedback from the public, because there could be some, to your point, some concerns of that. And I will say that I think when it was put, it was more thinking of like construction trailers, the dark ones that get parked out on a street overnight and you don't see them very well. The reflection isn't really there. Sometimes the hitch covers it if it's pointing the wrong way. Stuff like that, I think, is probably what it's intended for, but we might need to clarify that as we go through the readings to Councillor Bennett's to find out what the true intent of that particular clause is. You are allowed, yes.
Thank you, Worship. I was just thinking about education. We are going to be putting the spring newsletter out. I know that a lot of the most residents in St. Andrews, I gotta say, read the newsletter. So it might be a spot to put the new speed limits, or even if it's not passed by then, we could say, please be aware of your surroundings. There could be traffic changes.
Absolutely, and I feel like CHCO will catch on to this,
That's
and
right.
maybe help us with some communication if someone is in the audience able to help us with that.
Yes.
Per se. Good to see you, Ms. Sturgeon. Anyone else? All right. Oh, Mr. Spear.
Sorry, Your Worship.
That's okay.
I just had a quick question, I guess, and the clerk and I didn't talk about it before, but we only have 14 days, and so until the hearing of objections, and so there isn't a time for an open house for people to look at this and have a real good look at it. Mind you, we can still change the bylaw up until third reading, but I just didn't know if we're putting a real quick timeline on the hearing of objections, if we better to have some type of open house, just people can come have a look. It doesn't have to be a formal meeting of council or anything. If I just sat at the arena at some point and said, here's what we're thinking of with the sign, here's new stop signs, here's the crosswalks, what do you think? I'm open to anything. We can even do it after the hearing of objections, just be a little strange to hold the hearing of objections first and the open house after.
Typically, hearing objections 30 days, right? I know you don't legally have to do one for this, is why we're doing it 14, right?
So through your worship, typically under the Community Planning Act, it's 21 days.
21 days.
So just looking at it from pacing, if you're looking to try to pass it before May, and looking at the pacing and for us to order signs and change like speed signs and stuff like that, and to do the education process, we could also set a date of when it actually comes into effect. You've done that before with other bylaws, that although you pass it this night, it won't take effect till this day. So you have options that we can create a buffer saying it could start May 1st, and then we can have an educational campaign and information that way, or if council wants to slow the process, but recommend that you do it before summer.
But yeah, and but what we could even do is, if instead of having the hearing objections on
the open house,
have an open house on the 3rd, or at a different night, so we're
Yep.
not tying into council. Like I said, I don't think we need everybody here, just to give the community a chance to say it, then have the public hearing objections to the 20th, and go into first reading that night if there's no major changes. It's all just best practices. Nothing is a real right answer. It's just if you want a little more community input before you go to first reading.
Well, even if council's here at an open house, it's hard to get feedback. What was really good with the wharf project is you had that little survey that basically you could break out all these line items that you see in the background and just say, what do you basically think of these, and get some feedback, because you basically quantified it all for us, so we knew what percentage, what everyone thought. I thought that was more valuable than myself. I went to them, but I got more out of that than I did actually standing there and having one-off conversations. It told me what the general public was feeling.
Or maybe we could just do a mail out and the same thing, put a little map of the changes on the back, tell them how to get a hold of us, and then if they have questions, to come in town hall.
That's fine too, because that's an awareness campaign as well, right? So whatever's easiest for you. I know we got a pile of meetings. We asked for an open house on another thing. So whatever staff thinks works for them. Education's important, and also I think the feedback for us is important on this one too, because there's a lot of changes. Some of them are no-brainers, right? Like,
can you give us just 30 seconds to discuss timing here? Sorry.
Got any good jokes, Councillor Michelle? That'll take more than 30 seconds. February 3rd was the latest, wasn't it? I want to take the, I know my mic's on, but that's okay. I want to take the, remember we had the student fire chief of the day? I want to bring him in to get an early viewing. He was asking about it, and I said, you know what? Fire chief of the day, you should be able to be one of the first to see it, so. Yeah, I will walk.
Okay. Sorry.
Huddle over?
Huddle over. I guess we'd like it to amend it so that the hearing of objection would be Tuesday, February the 18th? At 6:45.
That's not what I expected out of that huddle.
So the amendment would be to move it to Tuesday, February 18th, 2025 at 6:45 p.m. for a public hearing of objections for that motion, and staff will look at creating an open house between now and then.
Okay, perfect. Could I have a mover to amend that? I've got Councillor Heenan, seconded by Deputy Mayor Akaji. Should I wait for Councillor Gumichel? Yes, you can, because we have time, so that way Councillor Gumichel can vote.
Thank you. If we're doing a public consultation and open house, could one of the things that we ask the public is their thoughts on signage? Because I think I heard in the discussion that there tends to be some backlash or some feedback around the number of signs that we have. I just think if we're making a change in the speed limit, I think that should be well signed. And
but since it's the whole town, so you get, you have to put out a thing called a change in traffic pattern sign, which would go out just on Mowat and Bayside, I guess, just as you're coming into town.
Yeah.
And then because the whole town is changing, correct?
Right.
And so that should be sufficient instead of putting it up on every street and every corner.
Whereas aspects like when you look at the four-way stop at Sophia Street and Prince of Wales Street,
Yeah.
like we did at Montague at Augustus, you have to put where the new stop signs are in place, you actually have to put new, and you have to put big new signs on them, so for 6 months. So there are guidelines under the Highway Act that we have to follow when we're changing speed limit signs or changing those types of, or adding stop signs. So there will have to be new information and new signs highlighting the changes to the speeds and
So
stop
it wouldn't be
signs.
throughout the community?
No.
Like the 40 wouldn't add anything more than the 50 already did?
No, we
That's
would
why the
yeah.
education's so important.
You'd replace your 50 signs with 40 signs, and you'd have to indicate the new speed limit. So you have to indicate
But
it
there
for a
would be-
minimum of 6 months.
change signs at Mowat and Bayside. That's what I heard you say, correct? Yeah, okay. All right.
And I will say the timing of this would probably be close to when school's getting out in reality, but in the summer, around the school zone, there's kids running all the time there. That's a busy, busy spot. Kids are kicking soccer balls over the fence, and it's just, yeah.
And Councillor Harland, I think I can say too, the concerns about over signage tends to be in the downtown because of the one-way. We have to put up so many one-way signs and do not enter signs and stuff. You have to put them up because you're going to have people driving the one way, but I don't tend to hear many complaints outside the Water Street area during the summertime. It's just those that tend to be bring to people's attention, we'll say.
Anyone else? Okay, we've got a mover and an amender. I don't think we voted on the amendment yet, so all in favor of the amendment, please signify by saying aye. That's everybody, so back to the original unless there's nothing else. All in favor, please signify by saying aye. That one's been done. We are on our last motion, I believe, of the evening, and it is on 129, which would be Councillor Hurdle.
Saving the best for last, right? No.
Sure.
No.
Sure.
Not at all. Reference EBC 250101. Subject is a bylaw number 25-02, a bylaw to regulate peddlers, buskers, transient traders, and food trucks. Call for public hearing of objections. The background is bylaw number 25-02, a bylaw to regulate peddlers, buskers, transient traders, and food trucks in the town of St. Andrews is being presented to replace bylaw number 75, which has been in place since 1985. This bylaw has provisions to address and regulate these business opportunities in the community. Please see the attached document for a copy of the bylaw. The largest change being proposed in this bylaw is a system to allow food trucks in limited locations throughout the community with seasonal, 8-week, or special event opportunities. Staff recommended prior to the first reading that council host a public hearing of objections to the bylaw. A copy of the bylaw will be sent to the Chamber of Commerce and BIA for comment. And the motion before us is...
Councillor Hurdle?
Yes.
Just note, can you change the 6:45 to a 6:30 now that we've done a change to the motor vehicle public hearing? Thank
So
you.
if he reads it now, it's a friendly, like we're good? Yeah, okay.
Certainly. The motion is that the Council of the Town of St. Andrews sets the date of Monday, February 3rd, 2025 at 6:30 for a public hearing of objections to bylaw number 25-02, a bylaw to regulate peddlers, buskers, transient traders, and food trucks in the town of St. Andrews, and I so move.
Thank you. A seconder? I'll give that to Councillor Heenan because he's lost a few. Councillor Heenan. Discussion? Okay. All in favor of this motion, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Perfect, and it's great that you're sending it out to the BIA and Chamber members. That's a nice touch on this because they did provide a letter in advance as well, right?
And council, please note we have forwarded versions of this before, but I will forward this particular version onto them for feedback and comment for that as well.
Sounds good, and we have nothing under Recreation and Environment Committee today, so nothing under new business. We are in question period. Would anyone in the audience like to ask a question this evening? I feel like there'll be some after. Okay, did anyone write in today? And is anyone on? Nope, perfect. And now we're into councilors' comments. Council? Deputy Mayor Akagi.
Thank you, Your Worship and Council. I just have two things. One, we are going to do the drum and rattle workshop. I've had a lot of people inquiring because we canceled it in November, but we are looking for some funding to lower the cost. We'll be doing the rattles in the morning and the drums in the afternoon, but that will be March the 15th. I will give you more details probably in February and book them. It'll still be here at the W.C. O'Neill Arena unless I don't get approval from staff. But I'm working with them to try and lower the cost for the drums, so we hopefully will be able to do that. Congratulations to the King Charles III Ordination Medals. Our fire chief, Kevin Terrio, received one, and he was very modest, but he certainly deserves it. He works very hard, and his family was there. Archdeacon John Matheson for the work that he does. Sharon Tucker from our area, and I can't remember everybody else. And I received one as well on behalf from MP John Williamson. But this was the last official, official ceremony that our Lieutenant Governor Brenda Murphy was attending. So I was very honored that she presented me with the medal, and I'm sure we all were. And there were a lot of firefighters and a lot of first responders that were that received the medal. So it was really nice to see, and some posthumously because they had died since then. But it was nice to see that there were a lot from our area that received them, and congratulations to all those recipients. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other member of council? All right. I was going to actually say that one, so thank you for bringing it. Congratulations. But I do also want to just congratulate the Heather Curling Club. They just hosted the New Brunswick Women's Provincial Curling Championships, and I don't think if people are aware, there's not a lot of small clubs that get events like that. So it speaks to the facility, the ice conditions by Vern Lister and team, but also the hospitality of the Heather Curling Club. They also, I think February 6th is the opening ceremonies for the provincial junior boys and girls are both here as well. So to be listed as a place that can hold events like that. I think having those in that nationals here a few years ago definitely put it on the map. So this building continues to actually, these months, this building is really the economic driver for our community from a restaurant and shop perspective. And it seems like this building is accomplishing more and more, and it's because of staff, but it's the facility as well and the condition that it's in. And of course, we do, when the Garcelon Civic Center or the Patrick Connors arenas are busy too. St. Andrews being the tourism hub that it is benefits from it as well. So just all in all, congratulations to the Heather Curling Club and Team Adams, who will be representing us at the Scott Tournament of Hearts as provincial champions. So, all right, no reason to go into closed session. So at 7:58 p.m., which isn't that bad, Council, I'll be looking for a motion to adjourn. I got Councillor Bennett, and I always give it to Deputy Mayor Ackergy. All in favor? Thank you, Councillor Blanchard. Have a good evening.
Thanks, everyone. Have a good night.